Nigeria, and making sure that our resource control and our resource management is absolutely top-notch and is absolutely wonderful. So we're going to look at these bills one by one, and then we're going to be calling for comments and opinion from various people as to what they think and what we should do. So I'm going to ask Uncle Faye to please share the screen, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, policy X-ray, a close look at the 39 bills. Let us look at them one by one and then begin to comment on them. Number one is electoral reform. Electoral reform. Simultaneous elections. A proposal to conduct general elections for all offices, president, governor, National Assembly, State Assembly, local government on the same day. Everything done on the same day. INEC empowerment, to make sure that INEC has the authority to conduct local government elections also, so that you now do away with this state electoral commissions. Election petitions should be resolved before the swearing in of the new elected officers. So that's electoral reforms. There are 3 bills there, 1, 2, 3 bills on electoral reforms. Security and policing, proposal to establish state and local government police forces, okay, which has been in the pipeline. And our president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he was a governor of Lagos State, was one of the champions of this requirement for state police. So I'm not surprised that this is coming up. Then corporate judicial reform. There are 2 bills here. Court of Appeal jurisdiction. The Court of Appeal as a final appellate court for governorship and legislative elections. I'm not making any comments right now because we're going to throw that open. Judicial independence, strengthen the independence of the judiciary, making recommendations of the National Judicial Council mandatory for the removal of heads of courts. Okay, very good. Inclusive governance. There are 2 bills here. Legislative seats, bills to provide special seats in legislative for physically challenged persons and other special interest groups. Okay, inclusivity is what we're looking at. Gender equality in the composition of the Federal Character Commission. Very good. Legislation and political reforms. A bill to establish political parties registration and regulatory commission tasked with registering, regulating, and monitoring political parties. Okay. Defection rules. Members of the National Assembly and State House Assembly to officially resign from their political parties before defecting to another. Officially resign before defecting. Again, maybe that needs to add something to that. Okay. Official resign from their political parties, not political posts, okay, before defecting. I think that is a toothless bill straight away as I look at it. Defection and official resignation, there's no big deal about that. I would have thought it would have been officially resigned from their political appointments or posts before defecting to another, which means that they have to start running again under another party. Notable proposals. Other bill to establish legislative assembly for the Federal Capital Territory. That's as it, so is the FCT minister going to be an elected position also, or what? Okay, and is it a territory or a town? Okay, so is it becoming a mayorship or what? We need to look at that. Public servants engagement. Allowing public servants to engage in sectors like healthcare and education beyond the current limitation of farming. Okay, that may have some kind of effect. So we want to look a bit deeper now as to the discussion, okay, electoral simultaneous elections bill, okay, maybe to reduce election costs and logistics chaos, reduce voter fatigue and improve turnout, decrease influence of incumbents in manipulating staggered elections. So I know where that is coming from. Who knows what would have happened to Lagos State in the last elections if they had not staggered that election and given the governor another 2 weeks to really run around and campaign and retool his strategy. To me, that's where that's coming from. And then some people do political calculations based on those elections here and there. Okay, INEC to handle local government elections so that there's more transparency and reduce the effect of governors over the local government and empower the local government and local governance at the grassroots. Creation of state and local police enhances security at the community level, raises concern about potential abuse by local politicians. Election swearing in be resolved before. It ensures that all disputes are settled and ensures that there's no undue advantage and increase public trust in electoral outcomes. Okay, court situation occupies the office only to be ruled by court rulings. I agree. And then, creation of state marginalized groups. Okay, reserve seats for them, improves diversity and representation in governance, gives a voice to the groups. Okay, gender equality, women's inclusion. I think women should really, really step out and they really should fight. You know, they shouldn't be docile anymore. And they should take charge. Symbolic and practical steps towards gender parity in governance. Regulation Commission, register and monitor political parties. There should also be some things that are not permissible by politicians. And also in their political parties, some things should not be permissible. You know, there should be rules, especially when it comes to cross-carpeting and when it comes to leaving your political party and so on and so forth. Okay. And then maybe it will help to give teeth and direction and a focus to those political parties. Okay. All right. Registration before defection. Opportunities cross-carpeted. Resign. Officially resign. I think the statement here is a bit wrong. Officially resign from their positions before they defect. I think that is what it is. Officially resign, not from the political parties, it must be from the political positions, but somebody should please cross-check that before defecting from one political party to another. Okay. To reduce opportunistic cross-carpeting and encouraging political discipline and stability in the party structure. Okay, those are the thoughts. Maybe we should now take them one by one and get what people actually think on each one of them, starting from the electoral reform. So I'll throw the floor open and I'll invite Pastor Sonny and Jumoke to now conduct the conversations around these electoral reforms. And I also will throw in my own conversation and my own thoughts if I am allowed to do so. Thank you all very much for coming. And this is also important. And part of what we're trying to do is to point all our attention at what is going on, especially in the various houses of assembly. A lot of us are not paying attention to what is going on in those places. And quite a lot of work seems to be going on in those places. And we need to pay attention because the outcomes from those places is going to affect all of us if we are not part of it and if we're not willing to listen to what is going on and make our own contributions. So can I ask Jumoke to take it up from there. I don't know if Sonny is on the platform, but I think he is. So Jumoke, over to you, please. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Faye, do you have the pros and cons? Can you, the slide with the pros and cons, maybe we can just do a summary of that. Pastor Sonny is in as well. Can you project the pros and cons, and let's take it one at a time? I think Mr. President had already spoken about the importance of us getting involved, listening to what's going on, and then also lending our voice. Because part of what we've decided to do is, after this, I would take a poll and then we'll have a communique that we would issue. This is us lending our voice to these issues, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. Faye, the slides with the pros and cons, please. Okay, Pastor Sonny is also here. Can you project? Oh, you have network issues? Okay, let me see if I can project it. Bear with us. So while we're waiting, Pastor Sonny, do you have any comments? Let me try to pull up the slides. I don't know if anyone else, Mr. President has gone through the bills. We highlighted the ones that, the key bills are the ones that were highlighted. Over to you, sir. Let me try to pull up the slide.
Thank you very much, Jumoke. These are very, very important bills, and it's very important that Nigerians pay attention to what is happening, and that is why we're trying to project this and have a conversation around it here today. I have my views and ideas, and I think we did make a presentation to the National Assembly also on some amendments that we were thinking about. If you have contributions, because this is really for us to have a conversation around it, and at the end of the day, we'll see what we generally feel on this platform, and maybe if we can do a wider consultation with other Nigerians and look at the bills that have gone through the first level of the National Assembly, that's the House of Rep. Electoral reforms. The first thing there is simultaneous election. There's a proposal to conduct all the elections on the same day, including local government and councillorship election, state assembly, governorship, National Assembly, Senate and House of Rep, and presidential election. Does INEC have the capacity to conduct such an election? Will the electorate be savvy enough to distinguish and identify each person they want to vote for under each category: presidency, Senate, House of Rep, governor, House of Assembly, local government chairman? Or do we remove local government chair and councillor and do all the others? These are conversations that we should have. I have my views, but I will reserve them for now. INEC Empowerment Bill to vest the Independent National Electoral Commission with the authority to conduct local government. Yes, I think most people will support that. I don't know what you think. I personally think it is something that we should remove the responsibility from the states. Then the third thing is election petition timeline. A bill mandating all appeals arising from election petition tribunal to be resolved before the swearing in. That's also good. However, this bill falls short of, and Jumoke, if you are ready, let me know. I think the bill falls short of certain things. Mandating INEC, we had talked about electoral transmission of results. I think it should be expressly stated in the law. In the last presidential election, the chairman of INEC went all over the place saying, because they were going to transmit the IRF, they were going to transmit results and all of that, people came out and had more confidence in that election process, and that.
Can you see my screen? I mean, is it sharing now?
Yeah, I can see myself on the screen.
Okay, then there's a problem. I think enemies of PowerPoint progress disrupting PowerPoints today. I'm going to try to post it. Maybe I can read it out because I'm having challenges with the PowerPoint. I guess I was doing that. I'm not sure why, but maybe I can just read it and then I'll share it on the platform as well. So you talked about the elections, the key proposal, which is simultaneous national and state elections. And the benefits of that is save costs, it boosts voters' turnout, reduces manipulation. Does it really do that? And then you also brought about the fact that can we afford that? And then the risk of that proposal is it overwhelms INEC, it confuses voters, and it also favors big parties. Then INEC would also INEC to conduct local government elections. The benefits is it reduces rigging by states and it standardizes the process. I think the first world have all these simultaneous elections going on at the same time. But the risk also it centralizes power and it undermines federalism. Are we trying to get away from federalism? Then another key proposal under the election reform is petitions resolved before swearing in. That's a key one. And then the benefits of that, it ensures fair outcome and it builds public trust. But the risk is it delays governance and may encourage frivolous suits. So should we stop at just the elections and take that and then before we go to security and the next? Do we want to take questions around that?
Yeah, I think we should exhaust elections, and if there are additions we think should be made, people can say what they feel, and we can call Mr. President also to give his opinion and his view on that.
Okay. We don't see any hands up. This is the time for us to weigh in. It's very important, and I think maybe we should have more conversations like this, especially around what's going on in the House. Any questions, comments? We've talked about the pros, the cons, the benefits, and the risk. Go ahead, Pastor Funke.
Okay, let Pastor Funke speak. Then I'll probably like to get. Okay, Pastor Eto can give his comment at the end anyway.
Okay. Pastor Funke, we've asked you to unmute. Please go ahead. And then Colonel Fadele is in as well. He wants to as a comment.
All right. Good afternoon. My first question, and maybe it's a decision, is that INEC needs to be separated from the government, the party in government. And this has been a major disadvantage to all the other parties and even to the government of the day, because everybody at the end of the day will cry foul because the first allegiance for somebody appointed from APC will be to APC, for example. So you see, we need to first of all find a way, maybe decide here and suggest to the government how they can make this thing not from the party, how they can separate it from the party in the government of the day. Because without that, I think all subsequent elections and even the ones before will be regarded as unfair. So we need to put, because before you can criticize something, you must have suggestions as to an alternative way of doing things. And I think this is foremost before we can even get into the conversation of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So your point is INEC should truly be independent and it shouldn't be like the head of INEC should not be appointed by the current administration. All right. So
that's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Exactly. Welcome.
Okay. Colonel, sir, go ahead, sir. We've asked you to unmute. Colonel Fadele. Can you unmute, sir? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, I have 3 or 4 points. First, what is the level of the education on electoral matter by the local people in the local area? Are they educated enough to be able to vote one day for all the posts for to be or the people to be elected. That's point number one. Point number two, why are we centralizing everything? We are talking of devolution of power. We are talking of true federalism. Where is the true federalism? If somebody sits at Abuja and conducts election in my village in Kaba, why can't we start now to develop the devolution of power to the federation units? Why can't Kogi State conduct its election, has its own electoral body, like we have in the United States? Every state has its own electoral body. Even the county have the electoral body, transmit to the states, and the federal one transmit to the federal unit and say, this is the person who won in Texas. Why can't we start that now? Why are we consolidating on central, the military brought to us? Why? Logistic. How on earth can somebody sitting in Abuja, call himself INEC, have the logistics to provide all that is needed in River State, for instance, the riverine area, to get to where the people are to vote for all the electoral posts in one day? That is logistic, which they cannot cope with. Now, where is the manpower? Are we still going to use the youth corps? Or who are we going to use that will not cry foul? I think that should be thrown. I believe strongly it should be thrown out. It should be thrown out, and we start to do things we think we have seen outside that works. True federalism, devolution of power. Let the federation unit have a say in how they are governed. Look at the local government autonomy. They said, most local government haven't got any allocation as we are speaking now. Most local government in Nigeria do not have direct allocation from the Federal Ministry of Finance. That is an example of over-centralization. You say you give them autonomy, they don't have a say, and then somebody wants to create a House of Assembly for Federal Capital Territory, defeating the aim of that creation. We'll continue the conversation. Thank you for now.
Thank you very much for those points. Very well noted. Do we have any other hands up as we continue this conversation? Okay. Did Mr. President want to weigh in on that?
Oh, don't let me weigh in. No. Let's finish the conversation, then I can weigh in onto everything. But I think, well, let me comment. I think this bill to do all the elections on one day is what it should be. I think we just have to plan properly for it and have our logistics well put on ground. We do it one day, once and for all. Nobody has other advantages and so on and so forth. And then we close the matter. Otherwise, the only other thing that I would then have separated the executive from legislative, so that might be the only compromise. But the tension of you vote 1 week, you wait another 2 weeks, vote again, apathy and all that. Let's do everything one fell swoop, and let's just plan for it. And so it's the same security cost, it's the same logistics cost, it's the same this and that. And they are going to riverine areas anyway, whether it's on 2 days or 1 day, So instead of going to riverine area twice, let's all go once. Okay, so instead of the team being 4 people, they may be 6 or 7 or whatever, but it won't be double the cost. And everybody would have done their voting once and for all and forgotten about everything. I would suggest that it's a good bill to pass, to be honest, if that's what the comment you're asking from me.
Okay, we have Mr. Afolabi couldn't raise his hand. Please go ahead, sir. But wouldn't that also involve like heavy capacity building, training for all the, because as it is now, they do appear late from the last elections. The INEC officials were supposed to get to a certain post at a certain time, but you know, it was like hours later, or they didn't have the right information that they needed. So what would it take for us to be able to do this on one day in terms of educating the officers and building capacity? Would we be able to do that?
Jumoke, to be honest, I don't think it's a question. The officers are already aware. The only problem you may see is the average time that it will take one person to vote will increase. Because if you are voting for one person and it's taking you 2 minutes, if you now have to vote for 4 people or 5 people, it may take you 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So elections cannot start at 8 or 9 and close by, so they just have to extend the time, because the average time, so that's one area we need to look at. The average time it will take a voter to vote will certainly increase. But let's hear what Afolabi has to say. He has his hands raised.
Yes,
And
good evening,
Blessing also
everybody.
has a hand. Mm-hmm.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're talking on this voting, everybody, on one day. I have often voted, and the cumbersome of voting, even for presidency and then going and governorship later on, or you see, the advantage of voting all on one day is the governorship elections can't be so manipulated as they are when we know the presidency. I agree that if it's possible to do all the elections on one day, perhaps it's better to do all the elections on one day. But the other thing we have to talk about is the logistics, the staffing of who is going to be counting all these ballots, all the paperwork. It's hard enough educating people voting just for the one they have to vote for on individual days. The rural areas, the other people. I was just chipping in my own on this voting for one day. I don't know if we're now talking about this other one of people once they're voted into office, like Senate or House of Rep, of resigning before they change parties. If you're going to have people resigning before they change parties, and then you're going to be having elections again once they resign, you're forever going to be having elections in Nigeria. As it is already bad enough that we're heading towards a one-party state, because everybody at the end of the day wants to decamp to whoever the ruling party is, wherever the presidency comes from. So if everybody's going to have to resign and then change to another, and then have another election for once they resign, we're going to have constant elections going all for 4 years constantly. That's just my take. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Blessing. Go ahead. We've asked you to unmute.
Good evening, Mr. President and everyone. Yeah, on the issue of voting one day, I think
your audio is breaking out, Sister Blessing.
Okay. A lot of training is required. It has to be optional if it has to work. Hello, can you hear me better now? Hello,
could everyone hear her? Was it me? Was her audio breaking?
It was, but she was speaking a bit better now.
Okay. We can hear you now. Please go ahead and unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, so I was speaking on the issue of voting one day, and my that a lot of training is required now. There should be the option of electronic voting for those who would prefer that, both home and in the diaspora. Then not everyone has to be on the road, and we don't have to have so many people at the polling units. And then for those people in the rural areas, people engage them, go to those places as to do during the last elections. If you see this, and I think it will even be easier for some of us, because a lot of Nigerians, I don't think many people know who their local government people are. So, I mean, if you are supporting a party, you just want to go by that, you can just continue and just vote everybody in that party. I just think that it can work if we make it optional, electronic voting, and there's a lot of training, sensitization for those in the rural areas, so that before that time, and for goodness sake, the INEC officials as well, have them trained. It's possible to have things well organized, prepared ahead of time, and to do things in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blessing. So on the election, Jumoke, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
So on the election issues, what are our broad resolution? There are a few things anyway that I think should be added to this bill for elections, and that's me thinking. One is the electronic transmission of results. Let them make it legal. Let it be added there. Let it not be either or. It will be both of them working. And INEC should set up an election monitoring control room as election is going on, where the results are being uploaded and they are beaming it on a live screen. So any result that come in local government by local government or unit by unit will be too much for them. But they can even do unit by unit in the state. Just enter them so that, and all the representative of all the parties will be there, the observers will be there. So a result is coming real time, and they are watching it on the screen. So it's not subject to manipulation again. I think they should have that in the bill. Another thing I think they should put in the bill is the cleanup of INEC voter register. INEC voter register as it is today, bloated up by politicians with names of people that do not exist. That's why we will have over close to 100 million registered voters and only 15 or so million people will vote, or 20 million. If you have not voted for maybe 3 consecutive or 5 consecutive times, your name should be cooled or delisted or something. And whenever you are ready to vote, you go and activate your name again. I mean, a lot of people are not in the country, and if you have been voting and you have not voted for 3 times, your name should be removed, so that we'll have a close enough register that is representative of current voters. I don't believe that the voters that have registered are up to that number, while trying to encourage real people to vote. So I think that, and then I think Colonel Fadile said, the election of INEC chairman should not be left to the president alone. I don't know how that will be done, but I think there should be more openness and more representation in how INEC chair is elected and all the other people. For me, these are some of the things I would say, should be added to that bill.
So we have a handout, but that has always been the presentation, that the INEC chairman should truly be independent. if we want a fair election process, then they have to be completely independent and not have any affiliation with any party or the administration. So I don't know how we're going to do that. I think there's been suggestion about how the INEC chairman should be appointed or selected. Dr. Fakbunda, your hand is up. Please go ahead, sir. We've asked you to unmute.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon to everyone. I think we are just fixated in patching up what we have. It's like a used clothes. We are trying to patch it up. Supposing we think of a new way entirely, all the patch-ups will not really help us. Supposing we say all the states, you have 5 members, making about 180. Then each state should do its own election to nominate 5 people. They might nominate a former governor, a former PAMSEC, former director. Just bring in 5 people to Abuja, forming National Assembly. Then National Assembly will take off from there, Electoral College. They will elect the Prime Minister, they will elect anybody in a small group like that. You cut out all money, all campaigns nationwide, all machinations. We have to do something totally different from what we are now. Our proposals under this Patriot Summit that is coming up, we are thinking something totally different from what we have, where you localize, centralize elections. We are done with this unitary INEC in Abuja. Mahmoud Yakubu, if he doesn't wake up on the right side of the bed, the whole country is aflame. That is wrong. We can't stand us. Let me not just, because it's a very short environment, I can give a full lecture on what I have in mind, but I think you have an idea now that we have to do something totally different that is not unitary, that each state can be treated equally, 5 persons, delegates to Abuja, like United Nations. You are now free to elect Prime Minister, elect minister among yourself, run the government at minimal cost. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So is that part of what you have in the constitution amendment, the proposed constitution amendment that you've been discussing? Okay. Dr. Charles, go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. I think this is wonderful. I think, yeah, I agree with the pros as far as elections conduct are concerned. But if we step back, how did we get to this point? That these 39 different bills were discussed in the Assembly without a whole lot of public interactions. It's a little bit unfortunate. The question becomes, will the president sign them into law, or does the Senate have to take them up again? And then maybe we have a better chance to interact with them. If that is possible, I think we have a good chance at having something more very interesting to deal with in the future. If they can implement, I think that was number 1. I think there were 2 bills. Bill number 1, bill number 2. I think that those can be leading us in the right direction. The concern is, don't know for sure if we have I want to say the political determination to make sure that this actually happen, because obviously not many of us are even aware of what is in the Electoral Act. So are we amending the Electoral Act now to get this entrenched in it? And if yes, is there a timeline on when these are going to be deployed? I hope nobody is saying this will take effect in 2027, because it will take a miracle to implement number 1 and number 2 by 2027. So I don't know if anyone has insight into the implementation of those 2 proposals. Those are the 2 I want to talk about for now.
Thank you for bringing that up. So the question is, if this becomes an act, when does it go into effect? Correct? Okay. I don't see any other hands up except Pastor Funke, who has already spoken. Are there any other hands up? Is there anyone else? I would like to take those who haven't spoken before I take her. Okay. Pastor Funke, just hold on. Let me take someone else that hasn't spoken. I'll take CTP International. Is that Barrister Kachi?
Indeed, my dear sister. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon,
my brother. How are you?
There's so much to chew through here. But I just wanted to amplify a little bit for some of us about the process, the lawmaking process. I served in the last assembly as a consultant to the constitutional amendment process. I think my sister Jumoke, you knew about that. So I was part of the last one. We turned out 23 bills, and then later on, these are proposals that have come from various quarters right now. They're not necessarily as public as perhaps the last speaker would have expected them to be. They will be. The process is they have been reduced to bills first. Now, a lot of work has gone into bringing it down to these 33. There would have been about 170, 160 that would have gone in and then thrashed down to this, with a lot of dealing and negotiation and horse trading going on there. These ones are then laid, and they have been laid, debated, and then they've come past first and second reading. What they now have to do is to go out for for the public engagement. You know what I mean? So public hearing. The public hearing will occur around the country. When we did it last time, 2021, 22, we had to go through. We had it in about 6 different parts of the country. The public is invited. Everybody can come to that. So those hearings are there. So they're not going straight for assent. It's nowhere near assent yet. So there's room for the public to make input, to debate, to contribute in a public setting, very open. And then after that, it goes back to the committee. The committee will now look at the input from the public. A lot of the ideas might die there after the public hearing. That might be the end of them. I think there are 2 views that have been expressed here which indicate that. Then those that survive, where the big challenge is that because this is Section 9 amendment of the Constitution, at the end of this process, they will then go to the states, and you've got to get 2/3 majority in each of 2/3 of the states' assemblies. That's the problem. Where we have work to do is not Abuja, it's in the states and local government. Not the state assemblies are where the problem is. The governors influence them so badly that they don't do anything. So what we introduced in our time was to ask the speakers in a forum in advance, go through these bills now, tell us what your attitude to each of the provisions might be, so that we don't waste time. Anything that won't fly, we can kill it here. So let's prepare. Public awareness, please inform members of the public, grassroots, to take part in the public hearings, please. That's where the action is going to be. NGOs, everybody. That's where we're going to make real change. This one is almost procedural to a great extent. This is preparing the menu, but it's going out there. That's what I just wanted to put in. There's a lot. I'm putting my notes together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's something that we may want to discuss with you. What is that? How do we establish a process for citizens' engagement in these hearings? Because maybe there isn't enough awareness. There's also logistical issues, right? How getting to the locations or those venues. So maybe that is a plan that we need to put together to help citizens get more involved and engaged. So we'll be taking you up on that. Thank you, my dear brother. Professor Grange, good evening, Mom. Welcome. Please go ahead, Ma.
Good evening. Thank you, particularly for the explanation by the last speaker. I just want to know whether this is the time to put in our own request from the diaspora that in changing the bill, etc., can we include how the diaspora voting can take place, within the framework of the new suggestion or whatever, new platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Dr. Gida, please go ahead, sir. We've asked you to unmute.
Thank you very much for the conversation. I love what Professor Granger said, and especially what the last speaker before Professor Granger said. We don't need to waste our time talking to the mass majority of the people. They have been impoverished to the point of whatever they tell them they will do, they will do. What we need to do, engage the 36 state governors. Let them see what is in it for them. We need to be able to convince them. They are the one to convince the grassroots. And when they convince the grassroots, we will be in a position to be able to engage with the mass majority of the people. Whatever you tell the majority of the grassroots, so long as they give them a pack of spaghetti, they are fine. They will go. They will not even they will not even agree with you. I'm part of a group in Ondo State, and I see the conversation that is going on there. The fact of the matter is this: we need a change. How do we get this change? We need to convince the state governors for them to be able to agree with us that, look, there's a need for a change. And if they don't agree that there's a need for a change, we are wasting our time. We have seen a whole lot of things. They control whatever is happening there. And when we convince the state governors that this is what they need to do to be able to effect this change, we will get there. Diaspora voting is very good, but with one stroke of the pen, people could change the diaspora voting to even make sure that their vote upturn whatever is happening in the country. We need to get people to be able to engage. We need to get the governors to agree with us that this is in their interest. And if they don't agree, the country will collapse on all of them. We are in a situation where if they don't agree with us, the situation will collapse on everybody. The country is crumbling. And we have a situation in our hand that we need to engage everybody to be able to agree that, look, there's a need for a change. The governors are the people we need to engage with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. I'll take this agenda. I believe that's Brother Dominic. Please go ahead, sir. We've asked you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, I just want to support something based on what last speaker, Dr. Gidan or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. What he just said is 100% accurate to a large extent. But the only thing I will be adding on that ground is that let's see how we can make it more effective in meeting the doctors one-on-one. I say the doctors, the governors, one-on-one. To say, look, so numbers of governors in so states have agreed to our terms. It does appear that it's only you that is holding us on this ground. So the public are not getting aware that your input have meaning to what we are going to, what is going to be the outcome of this kind of bill. So be that as it may, we are then soliciting that you support us to ensure that this thing go through. This is the lobby we should be doing. Then we begin to profile the names of the governors who have agreed to say this is where we are going to. We publish it. Even though it has not come out to say these governors are working very well based on this, based on that, then whatsoever the journalists are doing, we begin to flag it up that these guys appear supporting a bill that being proposed that might be coming up so time. And we begin to praise them one way and the other, that will make dissuade every other one that have not supported it, because the thing lies with the governor. Some governors are just there like a stooge. Some are just there for what they could gain. Some don't even know what the bill states. Sorry, with apology to most of them. Some don't even know about it. Bearing in mind that the way they came in is something like a push and push, and that is just it. It's the governor that is always standing before this thing. Then sometimes maybe the speaker of the house. These are the two people we could engage with. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sal. We are going to move on to the next one. And I know I had Pastor Funke, you had your hand up, but I would like for us to move on to the next issue. So did you still have your comment, Pastor Funke, or we should move on?
I think she can take it along with the...
She can take it along.
Yeah,
so who was projecting the slides? So the issue of security, if you could project the slide, please. Creation of state and local police. The benefit improves community security, faster response, and the risk of political misuse and fragmented command. And that is what that says. So let's project that, and then we can move on to that and discuss that. So security, the slide before this, if you could go up a little, the other slide, the other one. No, the slide before that last one you presented. Keep going. Keep going. All the way to slide, go. Next, go on. Down, if you can go down. This is, let me tell you the slide number. It's slide number 20. If you can go to slide 20, it's at the end of slide 20. There we go. You just went past it. Okay. So security, again, it's okay, here we go. You go to slide 20, please. Slide 20. This is slide 21. Yes, there you go. Security, that's where we are. Okay. Thank you. So I guess this is what we are discussing now, correct?
Yeah. Pastor Funke wants to chime in on this while closing your comment on the last conversation.
Yeah, I asked her to unmute. I don't know if she's still...
If she raised her hand.
Okay. Please go ahead, Pastor Funke. We've asked you to unmute. Okay.
Thank you. I was going to say, because we were thinking of ways, I'll touch on security as well, of ways to curb the, menace of INEC being from, well, I'm calling it menace, but maybe the thoughtfulness, not thinking about it deeply, how it will influence the country at large. So I'm thinking that we need not just that first past the post system, but we need an effective opposition whereby they will sit in, and the choice of who heads INEC will come from these two. And somebody was talking about, talking to the governors. We saw what happened with Rivers State governor. The government of the day, the power of the presidency, it's even present in America as well, is too much. And what you have at the end of the day is that most of the governors tend to cave in, when this kind of power, when there's a power struggle between them, so to speak. In terms of, I want to talk about what has existed since even my granddad was running elections. The claims was that in the North, the people who are underage, they vote, and that the North is not as populated as aforementioned, and we need to go back. and do reasonable census, because what you find out, what plays out over time is that the North really determines who gets into power. And we need proportional representation in terms of this, and all that, especially when it's been said, I don't know how, I've not done much research, that a good number of them are not voting for merit. They're voting based on what is shared to them and all that. So these are aspects that, of course, we'll be going to Abuja to really thrash out and talk about. Also, you find out that because of this lack of education, what we call Boko Haram and all that, had come up over the years, and we are not able to curb it. Because also, if you look at the greatest number of people who actually get recruited, they come from the North. The people who decide. And there's been a lot of collaboration, and all that. And there isn't much resistance of what is going on. And it's spilling down to the Southwest, Southeast. And I remember this guy that came up and was, he was subdued because, he came from this part, but he was able to curb things. But we need really to address security. I was watching, I think it was last meeting, I said it, I saw some videos and my stomach was wrenching. And I said, this cannot be Nigeria. This cannot be, but it really is Nigeria. I saw heads of babies and it was like, what's going on here? So we need to really sit up on security and we need to look into it. And these are things that must determine who comes into power. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Charles, you have your hand up.
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you. I think earlier you had asked if I was concerned about the timing, the schedule, and the answer would have been yes. But I think the explanation by CTP was very appropriate, which also means that this conversation is probably going to go on for another year or so before the elections and probably beyond. Now, that said, I can see why centralized power undermining federalism becomes an issue because I came in where Dr. Akin was talking about this. But on this security issue, I think we missed the boat. During the formation of Amotekun, that was a perfect time for our government to jump in and say, okay, yeah, we need to start to have whether it's a community policing, as the case may be. That was we missed that boat. However, we are here now, and so I think this cannot be overstated. We know these challenges in the country, and relying on your military to be responsible for your internal security it's really not a very winning proposition because you expose yourself to external forces and you don't have people to control that. So it's good to see that it's being discussed, but how do what would the adoption look like? What will be the implementation? Dealing with the governors, it's helpful, but I don't know how meaningful it is because, I mean, they're there for a period of time. Many of them are going to be protecting their interests. So I really believe in going to the people, hearing what the people are concerned about, and that should be what drives the outcome of this security bill. I would not be overly concerned about fragmented commands because if we emulate what responsible citizens or responsible countries are doing, you know that absolutely each command is unique and different from the other. The rules might be similar, but the implementation vary from state to state. You have some who have a highway patrol, and then they have sheriff departments, and then they have what we have Inspector General of Police, but they are not answerable to the governors as we have it today. So definitely, this is an area that needs a whole lot of conversation and discussion. Separate the powers of the military from the police. Let the police deal with the internal affairs and make sure the people are secured and safe, not subjugated to the powers of the Inspector General of Police. Each state should be responsible for its police command And yes, the commissioner of police may be responsible to the governor. Actually, I think in most states, in some countries, in some established democracies, the president doesn't have a say that much in what goes on in the internal affairs of the police unit in any particular state. Otherwise, you run the risk of a lot of abuse of power that we see very prevalent in our country.
Thank you.
I say security is critical. Let's start from Amotekun and see has it been successful, and see what lessons we can learn from the implementation of that system, and expand it to the other states.
Yeah, and build on what hasn't been, like improve what hasn't been successful to make it more successful for others. Thank you very much for your comments. I don't see any other hands up while we are discussing security. I'm going to take Dr. Steve. Dr. Gnida, please go ahead, and then I don't see. Please raise your hand. We are all here.
Thank you very much. We are missing a point. The point we are missing. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak again. I'm sorry, I have spoken before. The fact is that we are missing the point. The point is that there's a strategy. I live in the north. There's a strategy in the north to overcome the country with population. And whether you like it or not, the population is massively expanding. 1 man, 4, 5, 20 children, no matter how you do, they will always overwhelm us. What we need to do is equal representation for the state. We need to have one vote, one state, to be able to decide who becomes the president, who becomes the INEC chairman, who becomes the chief of defense staff, so that even when you have 1 million, 2 million population per the state, you have only one vote. So at that level, we'll be able to determine who becomes the president, to be able to take a decisive decision, to be able to help us to be able to resolve all these issues. When you do election 1 million times, the north will always be more. I have one wife.
We are on security issues now, sir. We've gone past.
It's the same on the security issue. Okay. On this same security issue, we must be able to determine who determines the security shifts. The population is a major issue. We must be able to address those issues. And in addressing those issues, we must be able to look at equal representation of the states, who determines the chief of defense staff, who determines the security issue, who determines who controls the security shifts. These are the issues we must be able to determine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just have to address a comment that is in the chat, and to say that this forum is not for Southerners, it's for Nigerians. It's for all Nigerians, whether they're from the north, the south, the east, or the west. And so there is a need for us to be a bit more sensitive and to know that it's an inclusive conversation, and we are one Nigerian. So please, let's just be conscious of that. And apologies to anyone that may have taken offense.
Vice President, please, just a note here. I think it is what it is. What Mr. Steve Ogidon is saying is very, very apt and very, very correct. So if all states and all electoral places, if they give them equal representation at the National Assembly, then everything will be okay. Because as it is now, conduct election 100 times in Nigeria, North will always win the election because of their population. And even the population is warped. So it's a deliberate effort on their part to conquer the whole nation and turn it into whatever they want to turn into. So we call it what it is, and we let people know that this is what is going on. So we'll be educated and know that for us to have peace in this country and for us to have things to go the right way, everybody must have equal voice, equal representation, whether it's a minority tribe or majority tribe. Each person has equal vote, and people should have equal rights and equal representation. I think that is the way to go if we really want Nigeria to develop and move away from where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are moving on to the next. Please move the slides. So we are done. Are we done with security issues so that we can move on to the next? We've spent an hour already. Okay, so we still have representation and inclusion. ASA agenda, please go ahead, your comments. And I'm going to ask everyone that hasn't spoken,
sorry,
please go ahead, raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you for giving me another chance to speak on this, because it's something that I'm passionate to. Let's look at it this way. If you take a basket to the river to go and fetch water, your aim was to bring water back home. And when you get there, you use a basket. What do? Nothing comes out of it. This is how the history of security in Nigeria looks like. Therefore, I'm aligning with the last speaker again, Dr. Ogida, and the other one. First, let there be equal representation. And I do not want to dive into president to president, the blame that has been unleashed at their table. Let's take Obasanjo, for instance. I know the blame that is still on him because Obasanjo was able to untangle most of those things. That is why I still having blame across in many states. Because Obasanjo was trying to look at how he's going to balance the equal representation in everywhere. Let's look at this from this perspective. Ogidan just mentioned just now, whether or not you are a small state, there must be equal representation. Let's take Kogi, for example. It's equally helping us one way and the other to facilitate and make sure that the dividends of democracy get to the people on time. Like Kogi, for example, I'm not saying try to belittle them. I know the size of Kogi. I know the kind of people that comes in here, from there. It does appear again that government is closer to individual homes, even when you see them not being organized. That is a different matter. So therefore, I will be subscribing that we should ensure that if we are to move forward in National Assembly, which is an issue of security, and how we are to bring people to represent us in terms of generals or this and that, then it must be equal. Then if we cannot put generals or whatsoever we call them, inspector general or police, this and that, then we now begin to tell them that if this one is this one has so power from so state to untangle when behavior appears to be irrational, then this one does this. If this one does this, that's how we're going to evenly distribute the powers across the state on policing. In the military, we will do the same as well. Then again, we will look at what gives oxygen. What is the oxygen to unrest in Nigeria in terms of security? Population, some people are just there. Some people are incubating like chicken. Sorry again to use this language. Nobody checks that. Somebody just wake up. Some women are being induced. Some women are being forced to do what they don't like. They will tell them, they begin to breed like chicken. They don't know where the children are. That is oxygen to insecurity. Then we must be able to look at that and narrow it down. Then in my own, because I am from Edo State, I will be saying, why can't we, because we have a common characteristics. There's something we call Egboluge. This Egboluge in Nisha and Benin is the same language we use. It's age group. If we have age group, pastor, imam, and a clergyman who are civil society, we have them in each villages. It's only when this white people came or Western world came, that's when they disrupted this structure. And the structure is still existing as far as to North, as far as to Kano. All we need to do to say, look, you are the head of the home. You are the head of this street. Get us one person you feel that everybody will be able to identify as a credible person. We profile that person. That is how recruitment to anything should be done. Not when we just stay. Some big men will just come. They will just say, oh, get me so person. But when it's time for us to go and face Boko Haram, their children are in air condition eating chicken and chips. When they go to toilet, they will shit egg. When they go to bathroom, they shit beer. No, we don't want that. The only way we have to do is to go down to the grassroots, state by state. The governor will have no hand in doing this. If you see for each quarter, each street. These people are living in a good harmony, irrespective of what we say that is happening. They know who is who. This name could be fitted up to local government, then they then move it down to the state. Then this form a structure. When you are talking directly to everybody from each door, because there's a representative in security. Not when somebody have killed somebody, then you go and wear the person army uniform to come to Sade or come to Far North to go and begin to kill people. That is unacceptable. I haven't seen that anymore. That is where you see, that's a catalyst to insecurity, because you just brought somebody who have been trained, who have a versatile knowledge in terms of how it's going to destroy human beings. Then you then injected that person into the system. That's the huge catalyst we are facing. So I raise my case for now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comments. So we are moving on to representation and inclusion. So special legislative tools for marginalized groups, and whether better representation for disabled and minorities could be symbolic only at the risk. Sorry, the screen is, so yes, let me read that again. Special legislative seats for marginalized group, better representation for disabled and minorities could be symbolic only. Again, it could just be another tokenism. And then there's risk of party control. Gender equality in appointments promotes women in leadership. Risk of tokenism or resistance from conservative group. So that is representation and inclusion. That's another very important proposal. So let's discuss that. Comments, contribution, and please, I don't want the same people that have spoken.
Let's just keep this.
Let's open this forum up for everyone
everybody
else.
to chime in.
Please, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, people will just get to speak on it. Yeah, special representation, even the able people that are representing using able people advisedly. Let's say, what do they call them now? People with special needs
or physically challenged.
Well, they don't want to be called physically challenged,
anymore. Okay, so special needs.
Special needs and all those kind of. Will it? So the question to ask is, what is the end game? Are they suffering today because their welfare is not being really taken care of? Will it be better if they have a seat at the table? What can they influence? So I think like a coach, I want to say, what is the end game of giving them a seat, a special seat, so to speak, at the table, either in the National Assembly or State Assembly? What difference will it make? Do we have any proof that if given a seat, it will make a difference? For me, I think this is an issue that we need to further interrogate so that we don't try to solve a problem that is not existing, just for the sake of it. We just want to have a seat. So I think we need more information to say that this group of people are currently suffering certain injustice or marginalization because they are not there when decisions are being taken. And it could well be, but again, can we have in any legislation you want to make, can they be invited to make their input? Because I know legislators and legislative aides always have a broad consultation. Could the law be passed that anything that wants to happen, it's just like in the West, any construction you want to do, anything, their needs are always covered. So that's my view. Let's keep it simple and short, and we will then summarize what we have to say. So Jumoke, go ahead and take others that may have comment on this.
I think it's the same hands that are up.
Yeah, but if they will speak for very short minutes and seconds, that's okay.
Yeah, so if we can keep it to like 30 seconds or less, and then we're just inviting everyone to chime in on this conversation so that we have a more robust discussion. I'm going to have Barrister Kachi speak, and then Uncle Afolabi, your hand is also up, and then Dr. Gidan, your hand is up as well. Go ahead, Barrister Kachi. I've asked you to unmute.
Right. Okay. You've unmuted me now. Very quickly, I just want to address the issue about the rationale for this. This is a matter that is historical. We're addressing historical imbalances. So I think we shouldn't even go into questioning the rationale for this. I think the rationale is established, well established. It's a universal, argument that has been made, and legally we would say that you take judicial notice of it. So we're not coming to argue that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. What is happening here is addressing historical, injustices in the system. These minority groups, all the various ones, have limited access to decision making, and that's what this is all about. Please, let's not, with due respect, go into questioning why we should be doing this. We've gone past that. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Gidan, go on. Or is it Afolabi?
It's Dr. Gidan.
Okay, Dr. Gidan, you can go ahead. Is he unmuted? You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. No, I've done that. Thank you very much. Even when some of us have spoken before and I don't want to speak again, so that I don't occupy the space. The fact is that many of us work across African countries. In other countries, what we have said is that let us give equal representation to the state. After equal representation to the state, we give women some space. We give specially able people some space. And when we do all those things, everybody will be represented. This is very simple. It's as simple as sliced bread. The state should be equally represented. Women should be equally represented. Especially able people should be equally represented. At the end of the day, everybody is represented. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Afolabi says he can't unmute.
We've asked him to unmute, so it may be coming from...
I've been able to unmute now. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No, this special representation, for me, sincerely speaking, the whole political system has been hijacked. And the true people as Pastor said it, Chairman said at the very beginning, some people are there to serve and are thinking, both representatives in the House of Reps and in the Senate. But let's call a spade, and let's be truthful with ourselves. How many are truly there thinking and representing their constituencies and therefore their constituencies or for themselves? And until we're ready to be sincere with ourselves and truthful with ourselves, rather than just walking over eggshells and everything, all this talk is not going to make any difference. This one representing, that one representing, it's all, I'm sorry to say, the truth is, it's just not going to, they're going to be silenced. They are going to be silenced, and then they're going to be brainwashed. Until we get the people who can go there and truly serve, who want to truly serve. But right now, the whole system has been hijacked. That's why we have people flip-flopping from one party to the other party. But Ojukalu said it the other day. He said it very clearly the other day. You can go from party to party as many times as you want. It makes no difference. Yeah? We might have different parties, but we're all the same one party. He said it. And that's the truth. And until we're ready to really call a spade and be truthful with one another, we're just talking. And that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think let's just read the rest of the bills and people can chime in. We've talked about representation. Then there's political systems, regulating political parties through new commission, mandatory resignation before defection. And then the benefit of that increases, regulating political parties through new commission, benefit increases party discipline, weeds out inactive ones, and the risk could be abused to target opposition, duplicates INEC's role. Then the other one is, again, I had mentioned mandatory resignation before defection, benefit prevents political opportunism. And then the risk, it limits flexibility and may silence dissent. FCT governance, it's Legislative Assembly for Abuja. And then the benefit is improves autonomy, tailors policies specifically to the FCT, and the risk, it raises cost of governance, elite capture, and that's a risk. And then the public sector, public servants can work in health and education. The benefit is it boosts service delivery, and the risk is possible conflict of interest and weak enforcement. So those are the key items on this bill. So I think we can just contribute to any of them that is of our interest. It's open for anyone who wants to comment. Please go ahead. Don't raise your hand. Okay, anyone else? I don't see hands up. So Pastor Sonny, what's your comment or your take on all these other ones? Definitely the women inclusion, gender equality in appointments is of importance.
Okay, gender equality, yeah, is just the same thing like the inclusion that we're talking about, and I will not make comments on that. It's open for debates. When I spoke about, I can still see CTP, responding to me, talking about Rwanda and co. The issue is the countries where this is happening, and even in the West. So if I should respond to that, Trump says he hates all these DEI hires and all of those things, that people should be hired based on their merits and not giving. And even in the current political situation, we do have people challenge people who have contested and won and are already doing what they need to do. Do we need to include them more? Maybe yes. The guy that was contesting under Labour Party in Imo State, he's a challenged individual. But I will leave that. I want to talk to FCT governance. If you say you want to create a legislative assembly for Abuja, then the minister or whoever should no longer be by appointment by the president. They should also have maybe an election to elect a mayor or an administrator for Abuja, so that everybody is elected, including the assembly. So Abuja is properly governed, separated from the federation, So if we want to have an assembly for them, fine. I mean, that should be welcome. It will make it better. But again, we won't have a minister who is appointed. He should sit over them. And then the issue of public sector, allowing them to double into things like healthcare and education. I don't know how that will look. These are very, very sensitive areas. What that means is that you can be a teacher in a government school and you can own your own school. What is to say that, there will be no, conflict of interest. The same thing with healthcare. So I don't know what's informing this bill. Maybe if we see the rationale behind it, but just on the face of it, I see a lot of conflict arising from such a bill, coming up, especially in these two sectors. They are low hanging fruits for people to establish. A doctor in a government hospital can easily have a clinic And who's to say that he won't direct all the patients to his clinic? And it will be legal, because he runs it legally, the law backs him up. So we need to understand more the rationale, the thinking. Maybe we need more arguments on both sides so that we'll see what will work well. And for the political system, I don't know, are they saying resign from your party before declaring for another party?
Yes.
Or resign from your seat as a legislator before declaring?
Well, resign from your party before you, because all this jumping.
But you retain your seat.
Well, that's probably what we can chime in if that's not clear,
Yeah, so
and maybe we can look into that some
the
more.
The wordings of the law is saying resign from your party, not from your seat as a legislator. So we need to understand that, because it really doesn't make any difference if they resign. Currently, they do resign. Maybe some of them announce their defection before they go and resign. Or are they saying that you cannot announce your defection before? I don't really understand that law. So
maybe we can clarify that, but I think it would mean resigning because it's your party that got you there, right? It was on the platform of the party that you got that seat. So if you're resigning from the party, I would assume that you are resigning from that seat. But I just want to chime in on the gender equality in appointments. I would say more gender equity. And it's not about tokenism. It's not about allowing or permitting women to come to the table. It's about making sure that there is a conducive environment for them to work from, that all these sexual harassment and discrimination, the laws are set in place so that the women, the merited ones, are able to come to the table. If there isn't a conducive environment for women to give their best, then most of them are not going to show up. No woman wants to go to a place where she's going to be harassed, disrespected, or abused, and then there are no consequences for this. So I think that bill should have other caveats to it, in sense of that. What are the consequences for sexual harassment or discrimination or abuse from the other gender that will remain nameless? So that's what I would like to add to that in terms of our recommendation, so that it's not tokenism. There's more to just promoting women in leadership. So we have Sister Blessing's hand. Go ahead. We've asked you to unmute.
Yeah, good evening, all. I just want to lend my voice to what Sister Jumoke just said. Women are able, women are capable. So it is not tokenism. I agree totally. We have found that in times past, before now, women have proven that they are able to do things and should be allowed to do it. But don't tell us to come do it because you feel we are second-class citizens to the other gender. No. Let us do it because we have brains on our head that we use rightly. But then, like she has rightly said, the environment has to be conducive. You don't expect me to come to a workplace where I cannot have certain decency, privacy, and certain, I'm looking for the right word now, to make it conducive for me, because somebody wants to harass me because I'm feminine. I just want to say thank you for that, Mr. Jumoke. I agree 100%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, okay. Any other comments? Okay, Dr. Charles?
Yes.
If there are no other comments, I'll bring up Mr. President to have his own comments.
I'm particularly it may sound a little bit well, it doesn't matter how it sounds. I think the fact that we have to call out the role of women specifically, particularly in our Constitution, really shows who we are as a people. I think that if we grouped everybody together as a minority, I'm just wondering if that does not solve that problem, but that we have to call out women specifically, we need to think very seriously what that says about us versus what it says about women. I think that everybody should have an equal opportunity to do what they want to do within the frameworks of the Constitution. That is why, for some of us, this idea that it's a North versus South or South versus North issue is really not projecting that which we aspire to be, which is we want to be one Nigeria. You cannot be one Nigeria if at the core of your thought you are thinking about North versus South or South versus North. That should not be driving our conversation. I think what should be driving our conversation is, what do we as Nigerians want for us as Nigerians? Yes, we're a young democracy, but we have been independent for 64 years. At this point in time, it should be, if the woman wants to be president, let's have a conversation about it. Let's debate it. Are they qualified to be president? Do they have what it takes to be president? That should be driving our thinking versus, let's put it in the Constitution that a woman can do A, B, C. I think it just shows.
So, just for clarification, that it says gender equality in appointments. It doesn't specifically call out women. But the benefit of that is it promotes women in leadership. So it's not the Constitution or this bill that specifically calls out women. It does say gender equality in appointments. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay, I think gender equality in appointment, that's still, whether we call it out specifically or not, we're essentially saying exactly what it's saying. What is buried in that language is that we have this concept of male versus female. And that, I'm not so sure that should be driving our conversation. I think our conversation should be based on humans. We are all humans. We are all human beings, created equal. God has already created us equally. So there's no reason. And I think that should be the preamble of our Constitution, just like the Americans have. All men are created equal to pursue their rights, under the framework of the Constitution. If we have something like that in our Constitution, I think that we have the conversation a lot better. And
thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Professor Grange, before I take you, I want to take Mr. Amos Emmanuel, who hasn't spoken. Please go ahead, Amos Emmanuel, with your comment or your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Is it his audio or is it me?
Good evening, all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there is interference in the background. There's some kind of interference.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, the static. I don't know if it is. Is it me or?
Sorry.
Can everyone hear else hear the static? Yeah, if you could take care of that, please. We'll try to speak over that if you can.
Okay. I'm trying to say without a earpiece. You know what? Maybe I can just come in. Probably I load it from my laptop and I'm running from the phone.
Yeah, because there's a lot of static and interference. Pastor Lu, can you hear him? I think you.
All right, no problem. No problem. I can come in.
We can hear him. Yeah.
But there's static?
Yes, there's static, but if he speaks up, we can be able to hear him.
If I do, don't do that.
Okay.
My one is just a contribution. I've actually, in one of those locations, I had one of them and just trying to do the program and I was particularly for the very, very insightful. Then first was manual, I run something and I've been the UN World Summit Awards National Expert in Nigeria on that's something like a charity. And I just wanted to see that, as we engage, on these people being like the scope of every project on just right. But I want to just know what actually that means for innovation in every platform.
I think it's
I
getting
can't
worse.
hear him at
It's
all.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't hear you, sir. I don't know if maybe you can
Maybe
type in your comment
exit and log in again.
or type it in the chat and then I'll read it out
Okay,
because
yeah,
we
either
can't
that.
hear you. Please go ahead and type it and then I'll read it out. Okay. So we're going to bring up Mr. President for his comments, and then we'll begin to close. Mommy Granger, I've asked you to unmute that if no one else has any other comments. Please go ahead, Ma.
Yes, thank you very much. My comments are few, and they are more on the, whether women should be given special privileges for appointment and all that. Let's look at what has been happening. Jumoke, I'm very much in support of what you have said. At the same time, I see that my brother Charles is looking at it from an ideological perspective. Yes, ideology is good, but what is the realism? Some of us as women who have tried to participate in government, we know that unless the men are made to accept equality with women, they are very discriminatory, and they do not. It stands to reason because they're coming from homes where it's a patriarchal system that operates there. I have been told to my face that a permanent secretary will not work with a woman minister. So, I mean, this is the real thing that's happening. Therefore, there is a need to put in the constitution or bill or whatever certain provisions that will make that will change that attitude among men. I know your attitude, Dr. Charles, does not have to be changed. You are totally for women. Looking at your trajectory and what you have been doing on the political front. Now, but it is very, very dire. It is very important to state there right now. Maybe in future we can now take it out when women have now gained respect, kind of respect that they need from their counterparts, male counterparts. But right now it is not happening. And sexual harassment is not just being looked at as a sexual object. Sexual harassment also comes from not wanting to accept your own decisions or your participation and all that. So it's very important. And there are many women who unfortunately will not be able to speak out to defend themselves. And for these reasons, I would like to go along with Jumoke that certain provisions have to be made in these bills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. We're going to bring up Mr. President to add his comments, and then we'll begin to close. And this is a topic that is very dear to me, the role of women in leadership, because I think it's important that there's representation. Women are natural builders and they nurture. And I think even women have a responsibility in the men that are raised that are perpetrating this evil against women. So it still comes from the women. There is quite a lot of discussion and education in changing this behavior, on both sides, on all gender, the men and the women that raise these men to be bullies, and the women that support these men to be bullies. So we would have that, and maybe this is the time, and Auntie Yemisi telling her that we need to have that conversation on gender equity and inclusion. That's a different forum, but we need to continue that conversation because it definitely would help a lot. Thank you so much, Mr. Dada. You had your hand up. If you still want to speak, please go ahead and unmute. And then you have the last word before we bring in Mr. President for his comments and closing.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, you already said what I wanted to say about the women, because I remember the last election when they were saying that women inclusive in the political post and everything. We went to make a research, our own party. We found out that women are more than men in Nigeria, in all categories. Yeah, are you getting it now? So who is withholding women not to get into power when they have the capacity to go into elections and vote for themselves? But the problem is that the women's solidarity in Nigeria is one of the issues. I just listened to Adeola Faye, who interviewed Natasha some days ago. I was just crying. All the problems that Natasha is facing was caused by a woman that pretended to be a friend to help out. In the case of men, because when we're talking about men's attitude, this and that, well, what about women's attitude too, that is killing women not to rise or to bring some disparaging image to other women? These are the issues that women need to fight. It's not a matter of marginalizing women or gender inequality. Thank God for Nigeria that for the past 40 years, we have equal educational rights in Nigeria when it comes to men and women. It's not a matter of 50, 60, 70 years ago where women, the likes of my mom, were asked to stay at home and the men will go to school. No. For the past 40 years, men and women were going to school. Nigerians as women of caliber that are well educated, that knows everything. But the fact is that the solidarity among women is not being talked about. They came about to bring down one another. When I listened to Natasha, I said, wow, a woman can pretend to be a friend to help her and then do all this to her. So I think the issue of this gender inequality into constitution, I don't see it as something, because go and Google it. The average number of women are more than men. When it comes to election, I've come to Nigeria many times to vote. I don't see women coming out.
But Mr. Dada, I think you're also missing an important point. The women that do make it to the office, how are they treated? They are bullied.
Very good.
They are abused.
Let me just answer
they are
that.
disrespected.
Let me just answer that. If we should look at that, that how do they make it to that post? It is through what they call it, favorism. Let me tell you that fact story. Because they were not being appointed because they have the support of women. They were being appointed because somebody knows somebody and said, go and meet somebody. And from there, they used the opportunity to maltreat them. Thank God for the likes of Natasha that people voted for her and she got there. That is why she could raise the highest brow. But others couldn't do that because let us talk of Remi Tinubu in the House that used to talk down on women because she got to the Senate through the helps of some people. That is the fact. So I'm not missing any point. We need to delve into this discussion very well and look into the problems and then elucidate it then and find solution to it. Let me just shut for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good point. And that's a conversation that we'll continue to have until all minds are educated and enlightened. Thank you so very much for your comments. Over to you, Mr. President. Thank you, everyone.
Well, let me thank everyone sincerely for being part of this conversation and this discourse today. And I think we're all better enriched for it. There were slight tensions here and there, especially when we're talking about the North and this and that. And thank you, Jumoke, for wading in. We need to be a bit sensitive. We don't want to rule out any part of Nigeria, but we also need to tell the truth. But we need to tell it from a very sincere and simple perspective as well. We must try and make Nigeria work, and we must try and get everybody on board this Nigerian boat. And that's what's important. Some of those bills are good bills, in my own opinion. If we can get an independent INEC, if we can get legislative process or court proceedings done and dusted before the new person is sworn in, it will make a lot more sense than the man is already governor and you are still taking him to court. I think the whole thing should be restructured such that all the court cases must be finished, so that by the time you are swearing somebody in, there's no tabi should go, should he not. Is the person who should be in that position at that time. Then if we can get a very, very independent judiciary, it will help all of us in Nigeria, and help the political process. And I think part of what the politicians do not understand is that they are actually destroying their own process by not making it fair and equitable. And very soon, they themselves who are riding the tiger will end up in the belly of the tiger, and nobody will be spared. And at the very worst, age and time just take its toll on people, and we're all just in every position temporarily, temporarily. And want to leave a mark of truth and honesty and sincerity behind. So I think some of those bills are well-meaning. Like somebody said, women should also speak to themselves. If you are 51% of Nigeria's population, then by the present laws of voting, if votes count, if you all vote for yourselves, the men don't stand a chance. So women should motivate themselves and get themselves out there and push themselves forward. Asking for equality, I think, to some extent, is begging the question. You must force it through, insist on it, and fight for it. The same way we're all trying to fight for a free Nigeria, and so on and so forth, and pushing the laws that will make sure that it comes by right. Men, on the other hand, should learn that we must create a more egalitarian and inclusive society that will get everybody involved. But we want people who are really interested, people who are really passionate to get involved in these things, and nobody should feel restrained or restricted by anything. Okay, if politics is played at midnight, nobody's going to give any special concession for gender. You have to come out at midnight and play the politics. Okay, carry your baby on your back, come at midnight with your feeding bottle and play the politics. Then we know that everybody is ready to play the game. It's going to be challenging, there's no doubt about that. Afolabi is saying that women are not friends with one another. So maybe they should stand together from a point of unity, okay, to fight this monster that has limited them, not just in Nigeria, but generally all over the world, all over the world. They must come together and fight it and have their minds also transformed, okay. So, but what is more germane and most important to me, including myself, is how we must all get a lot more involved, all be open-minded about this, all find out information of what's going on. I mean, I'm sure for some of us on this platform right now, if ALG had not brought this up, some of us might even be totally oblivious that there's some 27 bills being pushed around the house. And some of those bills might affect us the same way churches were almost ignorant when they almost rendered the ministries toothless and ineffective. So we need to open our eyes before the carpet is taken on from underneath our feet. And then we also have a voice. If there are any bills or any laws that we as a segment or individual or a person feels needs to be changed, there's a process. You have your representative in the House. Go to him and tell him that this bill you want to push it through, or go through the innocent public and send the bill to the House. I think there's a process for doing that. And the House is mandated to bring it to the floor and discuss it. There's a process for doing that also. So everybody should take part in making Nigeria great again. And I'm sure that not just Nigeria, but Africa will be great again. All right? Let's get involved. Let's not play ostrich. Let's not be blind. Let's not allow our country to be taken away from us right under our noses. Thank you all very much for being there. Jumoke and Sonny, thank you for your masterful conduct of this session. I want to thank everyone that has contributed, and we look forward to further discourse next week by God's grace. But what we have spoken about today, because of what I consider its importance, I'm going to be asking Faye and the back office to put together very quickly so that we ourselves can submit our own opinion to the House of Representatives, before these things become a law that we cannot contest against. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy this long weekend. I think tomorrow is a public holiday, and I think Monday is also a public holiday. And for our Muslim brothers, don't forget to send your ram to the appropriate places. Jumoke is waiting in San Francisco for one big leg of ram. And Sonny wants this year, so the head is very good. And Olu wants the intestines. So thank you all very much. God bless you. Have a good weekend, and God be with us all in Jesus' name.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a
Good
good
night.
evening. God bless you.